just Solomon Islands?
In terms of the Solomon Islands, the delegation is going to arrive to the Solomon Islands later today, Eastern Time. These are discussions that will take place over the day on April 22nd in the Solomon Islands. This visit, and it's being led by our Assistant Secretary Dan Crittenbrink and the White House's Indo-Pacific Coordinator Kurt Campbell, will follow up on Secretary Blinken's visit to the region earlier this year. It was during that visit where he announced plans to reopen an embassy in the Solomon Islands. And this visit is about demonstrating how partnership with the United States can deliver prosperity, peace, security, and highlighting the strength and strengthening bonds between America and the Solomon Islands. To your question, you didn't raise this explicitly, but it will be on the agenda. We are closely following the status of the security agreement between the Solomon Islands and the People's Republic of China. The signing of the agreement does not change our concerns and that of our regional partners and allies, and it does not change our commitment to a strong relationship with the region and to strengthening our ties with Solomon Islands and its Pacific Island neighbors. The Solomon Islands response to Secretary Blinken's announcement earlier this year of our plans to reopen an embassy on Honiara, it was overwhelmingly positive. And we have engaged and will continue to engage with senior officials in the Solomon Islands government as we work towards formally establishing that embassy. We've had a series of very positive, forward-looking interactions, and the delegation will discuss common interests and activities that, again, will be predicated on partnership and that will benefit both the American people and the people of the Solomon Islands.
President Xi Jinping today spoke about his proposal for a global security initiative, and he's talking about this, invoking the principle of indivisible security, obviously a Kremlin favorite phrase. I wonder if you had any response to that, and in particular, are you concerned that this is something that China could use, in relation to Taiwan or the South China Sea, to push back on actions by the U.S. in those, or support from the U.S. for countries in China's neighborhood, and potentially act in a similar way to how Russia has acted in Europe?
Well, we did take note of the remarks, also took note of the reference to indivisible security, which is interesting in that we have continued to see the PRC parrot some of what we have heard coming from the Kremlin. This apparently applies to the concept of indivisible security. The Kremlin continues to maintain that attacking another country in an unjustified, unprovoked way, in a brutal manner, somehow bolsters security in the region. It is unclear to us how what the Kremlin is doing in Ukraine is at all related to any concept of security, including that of indivisible security. But there are broader principles at play, and we've always said that this is about Russia's war against Ukraine, but at the same time, it is about the principles and the rules that over the course of now 7 decades have governed the international system. This is about the rules-based international order that has ushered in the most peaceful and prosperous period in modern history. And along with like-minded partners around the world, this is a system that we helped build. It's a system that countries around the world, the United States included, continues to help shape. And it's a system built on shared values, including respect for human rights, sovereignty, self-determination, those principles that are meant to undergird and to fuel our ability to address our biggest global challenges. So especially as we face threats from Russia's unprovoked war against Ukraine, COVID-19 and climate change, we are committed to upholding the very system that certain countries around the world, and Russia and the PRC are among them, seek to challenge and in certain instances seek to tear down and even destroy. This is at the heart of why the international community has stood with the government of Ukraine, with the people of Ukraine, supporting their own aspirations for freedom, independence, democracy in a country of their own, but also recognizing that what Russia is seeking to do to challenge the international system and to undermine it is precisely what other countries have sought to do around the world, including in the Indo-Pacific. We understand that when this international system is undermined anywhere and done so with impunity, without challenge, that it is degraded everywhere. And so that is why not only have we stood up for these principles in Ukraine, in the context of Ukraine, but also in the Indo-Pacific as well.
Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman is in Brussels talking to U.S. counterparts in Europe. She also expressed concern over China's amplifying some of the Russian disinformation. Could you give us an update? In the U.S. assessment, is China providing financial and material assistance to Russia in Russia's war on Ukraine, or is just a rhetorical support?
So first on the deputy's trip, as you alluded to, she is in Brussels, and she led the U.S. delegation for the third high-level meeting of the U.S.-EU-China dialogue on China. And tomorrow she'll lead U.S.-EU consultations on the Indo-Pacific. She also participated today in a moderated discussion at an event hosted by the Friends of Europe think tank about U.S.-European collaboration on a wide range of shared challenges, including our shared approach to the PRC, our cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, our assistance to Ukraine, and sanctions on Russia as well. She will have an opportunity to speak publicly tomorrow during a press availability with European External Action Service Secretary General after the US-EU consultations on the Indo-Pacific. She will also meet with NATO allies and EU partners to discuss our continued close coordination on President Putin's war of choice against Ukraine and other global issues. In addition to her engagements today and tomorrow, she, over the course of yesterday and today, held meetings with the NATO Deputy Secretary General, the NATO Permanent Representatives, European External Action Service Secretary General Sonino, and Head of Cabinet of the European Commission President Siebert. To your question about the PRC's approach to Russia, this is one that we have spoken to before. Ultimately, the PRC is going to have to decide to make its own decisions. It is our task to speak of the consequences for those decisions. And we made clear that if the PRC or any other country were to seek to offset Russia's losses or were to seek to provide weapons, supplies, needed material for its war effort in Ukraine, there would be serious consequences for any such country. We've been watching very closely. We offered an assessment a couple weeks ago that we had not seen any such support on the part of the PRC. That remains the case today, but we continue to watch very closely.
Speaking of consequences, could PRC face secondary sanctions if they support material and financial?
Again, we've made clear that any country that seeks to undermine our sanctions regime or seeks to provide support to Russia's war effort in Ukraine would face consequences, yes.
I have two quick questions. Regarding the security agreement between PRC and Solomon Islands, do you think this is a first step for PRC to militarize the Pacific Islands regions? And secondly, regarding the historical issues between Japan and South Korea, South Korea's incoming Foreign Minister Park acknowledged yesterday bilateral agreement signed with Japan in 2015 over comfort women is official. What is your reaction to it?
So on the Solomon Islands, as we said before, we are concerned that the agreement, which was concluded in a non-transparent process, follows a pattern we've seen before. It's a pattern of the PRC offering shadowy, vague deals with little regional consultation in fishing, resource management, development assistance, and now security practices. The Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands has said he would like to release more details, but if and only if the PRC agrees. So it's really up to the People's Republic of China to show if it can be transparent on security matters that have raised concerns throughout the region from many Pacific Island countries. There are many countries in the region that would like to know more about this arrangement as well, and it's incumbent on the PRC to follow through with that.